Hello, welcome to the Masterclass Theatre. My name's Dave Guest, and I've got the joy of taking you through various sessions in here over the next couple of days. Well, as you might imagine, the drive to achieve net zero is very much top of the agenda at this year's Masterclass sessions. And during this one, we'll be delving into the soon-to-be-released Blue Marble CPT Decarbonisation Report. It's the most comprehensive analysis of coach and bus data that models 80 million kilometres of operators' journeys and analyses the carbon impact of over 50,000 coaches and buses in the UK. Guiding us through that journey of discovery is Andrew Luckett. He's director of Blue Marble. He founded the Energy and Transport Consultancy, which is recognised as a leader in transitioning buses and coaches to zero emissions. Blue Marble is a crucial contributor to the Zero Emission Coach Task Force and heads up the CPT's industry data gathering project. Please make him feel welcome. Andrew Luckett, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. So I'd like to talk to you today about the transition of coach to zero emissions. And importantly, how we've underlined that with data and what we've done. So Blue Marble were part of the Zero Emissions Coach Task Force from the CPT. And we've did a number of things, and one of them was to try and understand what is the landscape of coach? What does it look like? How many are there out there? No one really knows. How far do they drive? Where are they all? So we looked into that. And how did we do that? We took lots of data sources, we pulled them together. We used crowdsourced information, we used Travelline to understand the regions and where they were. We pulled data from the DVSA and the DVLA on vehicle type and year of manufacture and miles driven. And then we did some fun things with them. So, what is the most common distance driven by coaches in the UK every year? Can we have a show of hands? Who thinks it's 30,000 kilometres? What's the most popular distance driven? Who thinks it's 50,000? And who thinks it's 70,000? Okay, so I guess you give you the target. Phil Smith from CPT, he got 2 out of 3 right. So there's your benchmark there. The answer is actually 30,000 is the most driven distance per coach per year. And you can see the distribution on there. Begs the question a little bit, do we need ZE vehicles with long ranges? It's an open question. The good news is the majority of these kilometres are driven by Euro 6 coaches. So that is good news for everyone. You can see the majority is driven within the last 10 years, and I think the regulations mean that effectively that they're going to have Euro 6 engines. Maybe surprising to some, thinking, well, surely operators like National Express have vehicles that are only up to 5 years old. Surely they're doing the most miles. That's not the whole story. We'll delve into that a bit later. Next question. Which coach model logged the highest mileage in the UK over the past year? Who thinks it's a Levante? A few hands. The Sprinter, Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, all about the same. And the Mercedes-Benz Turismo. Okay, Mr. Reed, you're a bit wrong. It's the Levante. Interestingly, though, because you can see from this graph, the blue line is the number of vehicles out there registered. So actually, there are more Turismos, and we're talking going back since Turismo range was introduced. There are more out there than there are Levantes, but the Levantes are the workhorse that's doing the express work every day, doing the scheduled coach. And you can see there's a lot of other vehicles out there as well. Here's an interesting breakdown of the Levante versus the Turismo models and when they're introduced. I think the Levante starting in 2004 and the Turismo starting about 2006. And you can see the very obvious impact that COVID had right here and how the levels are still not ramped back up to what they once were. Last question, if you're keeping score in your head. Which region has the oldest average coach age? Who thinks the North East? Nobody. Who thinks Scotland? A couple of hands. And Wales? Well, you're all right. It is indeed Wales. Interesting, it's maybe hard to see, but we can break this down. The tall orange lines are actually double-decker coaches. And it seems so, I don't know if that indicates a trend where they were more popular 15 years ago or so. But now I believe it's the yellow line is the one we're looking for. And you can see that Wales is indeed the oldest coach average, just over 12 years. Oh. So looking a bit more into the large spread, well, it is a large spread of vehicle ages. It's not normally distributed. What does that mean? It's a bit techie speak now, but the mean age of the fleet is 9.4 years, median age is 8. The most popular is 5, and as you can see on that graph, the tallest bar is 5 years old. The most vehicles are 5 years old. 50% of the vehicles are less than 5 years, 25% are less than 5 years old. 50% are less than 8 years old. 75% are less than 13 years old. But what we call a standard deviation, which is an analytical term, of 6, normally would mean that about 70% of the vehicles would be between 3.5 and 15.5 years, but the median age is higher, meaning there's a real long tail to this data, so it's not normally distributed. Normally distributed is a nice and even curve. This is tailing out, and you can see that there are vehicles up to 20 years old. So it's really not a distributed model. So that was a kind of overview of some of the data we got and examples of what we've been using and to draw some conclusions. We also have actually, through the CPT and through the Zero Emission Coach Task Force, engaged with operators, and they've agreed to give us their telematics data. And we've been importing this. We have 21 operators contributed. It's up to almost 80 million kilometers, representing 500,000 journeys in this time over a couple of years. Of that, we've isolated the coach journeys, and we've got sort of 32 million kilometers of coach journeys. And what we did with that is we simulated it with the available coaches out there. And for this example, we've used a Yutong GTE 14 with a 563 kilowatt battery, which is capable of 150 kilowatt charging. The vehicle can charge faster than that, but we simulated it with charge points that can charge at 150 kilowatt charging. We said it's a 450 kilometer range. It's quite optimistic, in all fairness. Maybe the brand new day with the following wind, whatever, but that's the advertised range. We all know that in colder temperatures or in a couple of years when the battery degrades, it won't be so. But we're also reliably informed by manufacturers that there's a little bit more range to get out of this battery technology yet, and they think they can get another 10% out of it. So this range we used, we thought it was good for this analysis. And the analysis we did followed the actual driving patterns. So we would take the telematics and work out where they stopped and how long they stopped for. And that's usually dictated by driver breaks. So anyone thinking about zero emissions, it's not really the charging and when you're going to run out of battery that's going to dictate your work pattern. It's going to be when your drivers have to take their breaks. So we fitted around that. And if a vehicle stopped at a charging point, we'd let it charge at 150 kilowatts an hour. If it was nearby, we'd let it drive and drive back again with a limited distance to respect the driver breaks a bit. And this is what we got. The first thing we found out, actually, was a staggering 85% of the journeys were actually under the range of the GTE 14. So does that mean we can just convert? Easy, right? Well, actually not, because 30% of the vehicles did not return to base overnight, either because they're touring or maybe they're just based away for operational reasons. A lot of people don't actually bring all their vehicles back every night, even if they're working locally. And that brings the feasible journeys down to 66%. It's still a reasonably high number. But, and this is the depot-only charging, we can see the depots on the map there of all the operators we've analyzed. We did a model, we did a simulation where these vehicles could just charge at their home depots. What we found is the average was 66, which is great, but the lowest was 22%. Highest, 92. So there's some operators out there really well suited to zero-emission transition. But the standard deviation on that is really high, indicating that there's a really wide spread where some operators are just not suited and others are. And there's a big swing. So it's not like there's an industry model to follow here. It's going to really depend on what each operator does. The next thing we did was look at depot and motorway charging. We took the motorway network and we put in 150 kilowatt chargers. Wish we could just do that easily. And we put in 300 kilowatt chargers and 1 megawatt chargers, and we ran that simulation 3 times for all our vehicles' journeys. And we found out it was very encouraging results. You can get 22% increase in the range in kilometers from the UK fleet with 150 kilowatt charging. And that rises up to almost 30% or 30% for 300 kilowatt charging. And 1 megawatt charging, 1,000 kilowatt hour charging is actually enough for one of our operators to go from Glasgow to London, just using his regular driver stop or driver breaks, toilet breaks for the passengers. So megawatt charging, unfortunately, is not available today for coaches, but it is coming, I'm sure. It's in the future. It's going to be happening. We had a bit of fun then. We said, what if all the CPT members would had chargers in their depots and would share their infrastructure? It's a nice goal to have. It's a nice dream to have. But this was really about just saying, if I can charge anywhere, pretty much anywhere I stop, how useful is an electric vehicle going to be to me? And incredibly useful, because an average of 86% of journeys will be possible, which is a 20% increase. So if you could basically stop and have a charger nearby, electric vehicles are going to be really useful without having to change your driver habits or your operational plans, which is very encouraging. Up to 99% for the top operator there. And what this actually demonstrates by the standard deviation is showing that's reduced. And what that means is the average operator is coming into play. It's really leveling the playing field here. And it means if there was abundant charging, then most operators would be able to adopt zero-emission vehicles or battery electric vehicles. Sorry, this presentation, I should have said, is centered around battery, not around hydrogen. A couple of other interesting points to pick out on that. If we're looking at this commercially, and we're looking at, this is motorway charging, and this is the charge sessions. This is when the coaches pull in and what times of day they want to come in and use the charging. And these are other one is attractions. So when they're going to Fort Park or whatever, it's not rocket science. It's not like freight. Freight can run through the night, but no one really wants to get up at 2 in the morning to go on the coach on a day trip. So they're getting up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. They're traveling somewhere with an attraction. They probably want to be there by about 10 o'clock. And they're going to enjoy their time at the attraction, and then they're going to get a coach home. So it's a real peak, or we see real peaks with motorway charging and attraction charging. And what that really means is commercial charge point operators are unlikely to want to put in large charging infrastructure just for zero-emission coaches. We're going to have to share. We're going to have to share it with HGV. We're going to have to fill these white spaces with other modes of transport. And if we can do that, then we've got a much better chance of CPOs coming and investing and being able to get finance to put charge points in. The other interesting slide, I'm not sure what the average electric contract is these days. I think it's about 25 pence if you were going to get a new deal per kilowatt. But what's really important is for coach drivers or coach operators to really adopt battery electric vehicles. The opportunity charging cost cannot be too high. If it's, in this calculation, with a 25 pence home charging, and maybe you can get it cheaper and it would change this diagram, but with the current cost of diesel at £1.15, AdBlue at 50 pence, depot charging at 25 pence, if opportunity charging is more than 35 pence, diesel becomes cheaper or the same price. And if, I know I've got an electric car and sometimes I pull into a service station and I'm charged 75 pence a kilowatt, that is not going to work with these numbers. People are not going to, coach operators are not going to want to do work that requires opportunity charging, so they're going to be limited to just home depot charging. It's going to limit the profile they're going to do. They're going to say it limits the usage because they can't use the coach Monday to Friday and then use it on a long trip on Saturday and Sunday because it won't be economical for them. So I think that's a really key point to take out of this. How are we going to keep these electric costs down? Because as we all know, and we don't delve into that, but the costs, obviously, of battery electric vehicles is very high. What good things have been happening? We've been supporting the decarbonisation of the coach industry. We were part of the successful Zenobē bid in Scotland, which has won funding for over 20 electric coaches. And we did that by demonstrating the benefit of shared charging. So what did we do? We basically put all the operators that want to be part of the consortium into our scenarios, and we let them share. And that's one of the key fundamental principles of the ScotZEB Fund in Scotland is the sharing of infrastructure for large vehicles. So the different operators can basically know they can go from Aberdeen, go to Glasgow, charge and come back and share that infrastructure at a sociable fee, so not an exorbitant price. It was a really good collaboration. That put us over the top with our consortium. We won the funding, which is great. Really important, considering the number of electric vehicles on the road today is not very high in the UK. I think this probably doubles it. I think it's a key achievement. And lastly, what other challenges are there out there for the coach operator? Well, you probably need to know if your vehicle is going to be, where is the charging? Where are the chargers? So, with the ScotZEB funding, we applied for funding and received it to develop sort of the first charging network platform where we can help reserve chargers, to help identify for operators, to give them a platform where they can say, well, I'm driving this coach, I want to go here, how far can I get, where do I need to charge, will this charger be compatible with me, when I get there, can I reserve it, because it has to be reserved for coach travel. You can't turn up and not be able to charge, it's not an option. So we're piloting that, we're building that out, and to helping the operator when you're going there, what are the facilities, what facilities are there? You see this with electric car apps, and you can see all this information, but coaches can't pull on to use regular car charging infrastructure, and this infrastructure cannot be made public to everyone, because when the coach is turned up, someone else will be using it, so it has to be reserved. That's the first thing we're working on with the ScotZEB project and our partners there. And the other part of it, the very important part, is you're going to have a mixed fleet. No one's going to go out and buy an entire new fleet of electric vehicles. So how are you going to integrate 2 or 4 or 8 new electric vehicles? What journeys are you going to use them on? You probably bought them with the intent of doing a contract that's underpinning the financial risk of that. But that's probably Monday to Friday. How are you going to use it on the most profitable journeys on a Saturday and Sunday? Which one gives you the best benefit? So we model that. We model it using the diesel price to understand that the best one to do is probably the longest range where I don't need opportunity charging. But beyond that, where's that break even with diesel? How do we prioritize them? What's safe? And operationally, when I'm running, if I get somewhere, where can I charge? And if that charge is not available, where's the next charger? What's my backup plan, my backup point? So I whistled through this quite quickly. This is the closing slide, which is basically saying, please follow me on LinkedIn. So hopefully that QR code will work, and you'll be able to add me or follow me, and we can put some details when we release the report, when it's formatted and printed properly, or printed, ready for download. We'll post that on LinkedIn so you can get your hands on it. And just to let you know, what services Blue Marble provide to help coach operators with their transition is basically a full tool set. We give a dashboard. We can study your telematics journeys. We've got a methodology around that. We can do the modeling, identify different charging opportunities, clustering chargers, sharing it amongst different operators, doing a depot analysis. So how much electricity do you think you need? What can you do with the infrastructure that you're able to buy? What connection can you get? What can you do with that connection? How much of your fleet could you actually transform or transition with that? And a bit of a financial analysis on that. And that sort of tool set was backed by funding from the DFT and their Catapult scheme. So we have a platform, it's ready to go, and we're waiting really for, I guess the government would be a key finding to come and help incentivize people to make that step, to help with the capital costs, to help with infrastructure, and to help motivate more and more people to do it. Because I think what we've demonstrated with our analysis is it is possible. There are changes you need to make to your working practices, but they are by no means insurmountable. But what people really need is an incentive to start doing this, an incentive to start the transition and to start moving, because we assume a backstop of 2040 will be when you can no longer buy diesel vehicles, but let's start that sooner rather than later, and let's incentivize people to do that. And so thank you very much for your time listening to me.
Thank you, Andrew. So just picking up your last point about incentives, when you say incentives, you mean grants to help with you setting up your infrastructure, buying your fleet, as in cash grants, or are there other incentives that could be used?
Yeah, I think if you look at the costs, you've got the vehicle cost, which is, maybe that will come down naturally over time when more manufacturers enter the arena and provide more vehicle types. But at the moment, it's a good 100 plus K for an electric vehicle. If they can't help with the capital cost, then what about the energy costs? Because if it's clear that running electric would be cheaper, you could say your variable costs over a 5-year period or something will make up the capital cost, and then for year 6, 7, 8, you'll be making money. So maybe something on electricity pricing, on the tax around that, some sort of red diesel, red electric, something like that potentially.
And the work that's going on in Scotland, do you see that ultimately perhaps becoming a blueprint for elsewhere, certainly in terms of sharing facilities, the network of charging points, the cost of the power?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point behind the ScotZEV Fund, and I think the reason that we were successful and we beat other bids is because we really wanted to come up with a sustainable model. And that says, doing this work on the applications to help operators actually take up electric vehicles and use them more than just for local contracts and going backwards and forwards, shuttling people to, let's be honest, corporations that want to have better green credentials that are willing to pay extra. But we need to use it beyond that and use them at the weekends and use them for the theatre trips. And
it was an interesting figure that you gave, that a megawatt would get you from Glasgow to London.
Yes.
But not available just yet, but very soon. Anyway, anybody got any questions for Andrew? Yes.
Excellent presentation. Thank you, Andrew. Did you apply any of the analysis to hydrogen, whether that be fuel cells or internal combustion engines?
We can do. We haven't done any modelling on hydrogen, but it's very sort of similar maths, if you like. I mean, the platform can handle that, so we just need to put in different consumption figures and different ranges, and then we can show that.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Keith Ormer, Transport Planning, a freelance consultant. What I read in the general and the science press is battery capacity is increasing, new technologies coming along. Obviously, what might be good business for you is being paid to update your report every year. But I mean, how much do you think we'll get to in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years' time, where effectively 1,000-mile range will be feasible? Do you think the trajectory of battery capacity is going to be that quick, or is that just wishful thinking?
Bit of crystal ball gazing there, Andrew.
The feedback, I met with some of the Chinese guys from Yutong and talked to them about, I asked them that question. And the initial feedback is, they're concentrating at the moment on the current battery technologies, and as I said, I think they can get an extra 10% or so out of them by refining that approach, however they would do it. But then you need to look at alternative battery compositions, different chemistries, and there are trials going on with it, and I'm pretty sure they will make some strides in those areas, but I don't have any concrete figures on it.
Okay. Well, Andrew, we've run out of time as we ever do, so thank you very much for a very thought-provoking presentation. Andrew Luckett, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.